It's Dr. May to you. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be here with all of you today. Happy Vegan Day. My name is Armaiti May, and I'm a practicing veterinarian in Los Angeles. As Stephanie mentioned, I have been a lifelong vegetarian and vegan for the last 18 years. I went vegan in college after learning about what happens to dairy cows and egg-laying hens. When I was growing up, I was raised vegetarian because my mother had been raised that way because her father, my grandfather, witnessed a pig being slaughtered and vowed never again to eat land animals with my grandmother. That tradition passed on to me, and it made sense to me because why would I want to eat my friends, let alone my future patients? As I grew up and learned more about what happens in factory farming, it became clear to me that going vegan was the best thing for me to do to help animals. I read a book called Diet for a New America by John Robbins, and it really opened my eyes to the cruelties in these industries. Specifically, in the dairy industry, calves are taken away from their mothers on their first day of life, male calves, because they are of no monetary value to the dairy industry. And these female dairy cows are forcibly kept impregnated year after year through artificial insemination in order to produce babies, and that's how they produce their milk as well, because the babies are supposed to be the recipients of the milk, but of course they are stolen away from their mothers. Then at about 5 years of age, these dairy cows eventually are slaughtered, because at that point their milk productivity has declined to where it's no longer profitable to keep them. And so this whole industry is based upon profit, not concern and care for the well-being of these animals. The bond between the mother and her baby is very strong, and when that bond is severed, it is a tragic mourning that both the baby and his mother experience. So I didn't want to be a part of that. When I learned about what happened in the egg industry, I was also really appalled. Male chicks are ground alive or gassed on their first day of life in the egg industry because they are of no monetary value to the egg industry. Meanwhile, hens are debeaked, which means a hot blade cuts through tender nerve tissue on the tip of their beaks, done without any painkillers or anesthesia, and they eventually, their bodies are worn out and they end up becoming what are called spent hens, and they're just discarded. I've seen so many undercover videos of what happens to these animals, and it is truly heartbreaking. I once had the opportunity to bear witness in person on a duck meat farm to some of the atrocities going on after an undercover investigator had documented some disturbing practices. And what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life, because these animals were, in some cases, so weak they couldn't get to their food bowl, and they ended up starving to death because of the poorly maintained wire mesh flooring. I also saw bloody tail feathers, wounds, untreated injuries, and dead birds along with living birds. We have to remember the thing about humane raising of animals is really an oxymoron. It's not based in reality. Whenever an animal is being raised for food, the end point is slaughter, and that is a bloody and violent death. So regardless of how those animals are kept, they are facing an untimely and violent end, which is not something they deserve. And we, frankly, can do better by them. There are plenty of delicious plant-based alternatives available for whatever your favorite food might be, whether it's cheese, milk, eggs, meat. All of those foods have vegan versions available, and more so now than ever before. There's a company called Beyond Meat that has alternatives that are readily available. Gardein, there are cashew milks, almond-based cheeses, cashew cheeses, coconut milk, coconut ice cream. There's something for every palate out there. And when I became aware of this, it became something that was a passion of mine, and I wanted to share it. So before I started vet school in 2001, I attended my first animal rights conference in Washington, D.C. and I collected a bunch of stickers which said things like love animals, don't eat them, protect farm animals, go vegan. And before the first day of classes, I plastered my locker with these stickers. I was hoping that somehow I would get my classmates to go vegan along with me. Well, lo and behold, it didn't quite turn out that way. I was called into the dean's office about 6 weeks into my first quarter of vet school and was told that one of my classmates complained they were offended by my locker stickers. I was stunned. I could not believe that this would be happening, and yet it was. So I had to struggle through vet school. It was not an easy time, but I'm really glad that I made it through because now I'm able to help animals, not only individuals, but also speaking on behalf of animals at large. And that's why I started this nonprofit organization, the Veterinary Association for the Protection of Animals, or VAPA. Our goal is to raise awareness about the benefits of veganism for the planet, our health, and of course the animals, as well as to encourage vet schools to have more humane surgical teaching methods in their curriculum. What does this mean? Well, for those who are pursuing a career in medical sciences, whether it's human medicine or veterinary medicine, you have to learn anatomy, and that involves dissection of cadavers. So in the veterinary world, there are ways to obtain what we consider ethical source cadavers. Western University College of Veterinary Medicine, located in Pomona, has a willed body donation program. That means that guardians of dogs and cats who die of natural causes or are euthanized for humane medical reasons can be donated to this program so that vet students can learn anatomy and pathology without having to take the lives of healthy animals in the process. This is very important because a lot of people, including many of you perhaps here, would like to pursue a career in helping animals, whether it's as a veterinary technician, a veterinarian, an animal nurse, what have you. And yet, perhaps you have felt discouraged from pursuing that because you don't want to have to kill healthy animals in order to become a veterinarian or a doctor of whatever kind you're looking to become. And you shouldn't have to. So what we're trying to do is improve awareness about the alternatives there are to harmful and terminal use of animals in the curriculum. In addition to the willed body donation program, there's also ways to learn surgery that don't involve hurting or killing animals. For example, wet lab or a surgery training experience called a wet lab involving these ethical source cadavers can allow people to learn tissue handling skills, suturing skills, and these can also be practiced on inanimate models that prepare these students to do these procedures on patients who actually need the procedures. Spaying and neutering is something that's highly in demand. There are all kinds of animals running around in impoverished neighborhoods as well as other countries that would benefit from being spayed and neutered. And this is a great opportunity for students to get out there, whether they're in vet school or considering vet school or a technician, to go on these trips and volunteer your time to get that experience. That's what I did when I was in vet school. I volunteered in Guatemala for a couple weeks with a program called Rural Area Veterinary Services, or RAVS, which is now under the umbrella of the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association. And you can check out their website, hsvma.org, to learn more about the trips they do. And there are many other groups out there as well. World Vets, there are a lot of groups that you can get involved in to volunteer and get great experience. And if you don't have the time or money to travel abroad, you can volunteer at your local animal shelter. You can team up with veterinarians, learn about what they're doing, maybe help them, scrub in with them, learn about surgery, watch surgery videos online too. And all of that helps to prepare oneself for becoming a competent surgeon, which is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of practice. But there is a need out there, whether it's spaying and neutering feral cats, which I've volunteered with through Catnippers, or other organizations that are helping these issues. There are opportunities out there to learn and give back at the same time. I also want to talk a little bit about the environmental impact of a plant-based diet. It's so crucial in this day and age with the climate crisis we're experiencing, and yet But greenhouse gas emissions from the livestock industry contribute more to global warming than all of transportation put together. That's over 51% of the greenhouse gas emissions coming from the livestock sector. So that means that a vegan driving a Hummer has less of a carbon footprint than a meat eater riding a bike, if you can believe that. We all can make changes to be better and more conscientious. It's just so important to realize why protecting the planet is vital for our future, and eating a plant-based diet is absolutely integral to that. So every second, 1 acre is being destroyed in the rainforest in the Amazon. Every single second. And it's just mind-boggling when you think about what that means, because these rainforests are supplying vital nutrients to our soil. They are offering medicines, some of which have not even been discovered yet. They have a rich diversity of animal and plant species that contribute to the biodiversity of our planet. They offer oxygen, which is vital to the growth of many different types of species, including our own. And so we have to protect the rainforest. And the number one reason that rainforests are being destroyed is to create land for cattle to graze or to raise crops to feed those cows and other livestock that are being slaughtered for human consumption. How many of you have been concerned about world hunger? Many of you also share concerns about that, and rightly so. We should be concerned about it. Well, did you know that many more hungry mouths could be fed if we opted for a plant-based diet? That's because it takes 12 pounds of grain to produce just 1 pound of grain-fed beef. And yet, all this food that could be fed directly to people in the form of corn, soybeans, wheat, is being fed to cows and other livestock. And it's a very inefficient way of converting calories into usable energy. There are over 70 billion animals worldwide who are being slaughtered every single year for human consumption. And this is something that's also hurting human health. We're experiencing epidemic rates of heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer of the prostate, breast, and colon, which have been shown to be highly correlated with eating animal products, whereas eating a plant-based diet, especially a whole foods plant-based diet, can not only prevent those diseases but even reverse them. So I encourage you to continue on with your journey and take whatever steps you need to take. It can be a gradual process for some people. Some people can go cold tofu overnight and make this switch, and that's great. But do something, commit to something that you're going to do to make a change for the better. Because the animals are counting on us, the planet needs our help, and it's better for your health as well. Thank you for joining me in this journey, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. Yes?
I have a question. I actually attended Davis, I attended Davis, so I have some idea of what happened in the vet school. This is why my mother here is always saying to me, you should be a vet, you're really good with animals. And I say, but I couldn't go through veterinary school because I don't want to maim healthy animals or, like the things that are, a lot of the surgery is done on animals that are healthy, and you're basically injuring the animal during surgery. So how are you guys going to try to address that?
Thank you. So surgery skills can definitely be learned without taking the lives of healthy animals. Spaying and neutering is a commonly needed surgery, especially spaying is a complicated surgery, and it's an ovariohysterectomy.
How do you get vet schools to change? Right, we know that that's possible, but they're in this paradigm where, because I can remember when I went there was the professor in the vet school, was his name Ned?
Ned Buyukmicha, he was the founder of...
And he was getting all sorts of crap.
I understand.
From the school,
That's right. Yeah, it's a tough battle. It's not easy. So Ned Buyukmicha is a veterinarian who founded the Association of Veterinarians for Animal Rights way back in the 80s, and at that time they had their focus on eliminating terminal surgeries from vet schools, but there was not enough support to continue that on, and then ended up that the Humane Society, Veterinary Medical Association, formed as a way to merge AVAR with the Humane Society. That was in 2008. So, to my understanding, it's been difficult to get information from some of the vet schools. So, I'm still looking for support and help to move this effort forward. And what can be helpful is if people are willing to make phone calls to the vet schools and or talk with vet students and get the information that we need. And that will allow us to take the next step. I'd like to meet with the veterinary school professionals and encourage them to adopt better options. As I mentioned, Western University, which is right here in Southern California, Pomona, has a reverence for life philosophy, which means they do not have any harmful or terminal use of animals in their curriculum. They do not have terminal surgeries. Terminal surgeries are where healthy animals are taken, put under anesthesia, and then killed at the end without even knowing if the surgery was a success. So it's bad on multiple levels. If people are interested in getting involved, you're welcome to take a brochure. I have these brochures I brought with me today. I'll pass them around. It's the VAPA, Veterinary Association for the Protection of Animals. So again, take one of those and pass it around. And our website is vapavets.org. So I've been in communication with Western University, which has the Willed Body Donation Program called WAVE, which stands for Willed Animals for Veterinary Education. And so when I do at-home euthanasias at people's homes, I offer the clients the option to donate the body to the vet school. So that's something that could be replicated at other schools. When I was at UC Davis, I also worked to try to get rid of the terminal surgeries there, and they eventually did get rid of the ones in the small animal surgery curriculum. However, there was a bit of work involved in finally getting it set up to where they had a rotation during senior year, where they had students performing surgeries that needed to be performed on animals who actually benefited from those procedures with faculty supervision. So that was a win-win. So that's the goal, to get to that point at other schools as well. Thank you. Yes?
As a vet, I don't think this works.
It looks like it's on, but I don't know if it's working anyway.
As a vet, how do you feel about giving your pets a vegan? Because I heard that cats can't survive being vegan, but dogs can, in a healthy way where they're meeting all their nutritional criteria.
That's a great question. So the question's about vegan nutrition for dogs and cats. Well, actually, I have 2 cats at home, and they are both vegan. So it is possible to have cats be vegan. It's not as easy as it is for dogs to be vegan, however. Dogs are considered omnivores, and they can thrive on a plant-based diet provided it meets their nutritional requirements, which of course include the fatty acid, protein, carbohydrate, and trace mineral and vitamin requirements that all species have in varying amounts, different requirements for different nutrients. Their requirements are not for specific ingredients like flesh or dairy or eggs. They have nutrient requirements can be met through plant, mineral, and synthetic sources. So there are many different options available on the market. There's VDog, v-dog.com, Evolution, petfoodshop.com, Benevo, benevo.com, ecodogsandcats.com. You can order online both canned and kibble that are vegan for dogs, and some of those also would be suitable for cats, such as the Benevo and the Evolution that offer formulas for cats as well. It is important for someone who has a dog of a certain breed, like a Bichon, miniature poodles, schnauzers, and Cocker Spaniels, amongst other breeds that are prone to urinary crystals, to have their urine pH checked after switching to a vegan diet, and ideally before switching so you have a baseline to know that they're not crystals forming in the urine, because those can become problematic. They can turn into stones. This can happen to non-vegan dogs as well. It happens to them all the time, just as non-vegan cats can also be adversely affected by crystals and stones, which is even a greater concern for cats, actually. But to avoid those problems, it's best to feed a moist diet. The more wetness in the food, the better in terms of prevention of crystals and stones from forming, so it helps to dilute out the urine.
Isn't there a certain thing, I think it starts with an L, that cats need to have?
Cats have to have taurine, and that has to be in their diets. It's actually supplied synthetically in meat-based cat foods because the rendering process makes it unavailable. At high temperatures that it goes through in the processing of the food, the taurine becomes unavailable. So they have to add it back into the meat-based food anyway, and they, of course, have to add it to the vegan food as well. So taurine deficiency would be a major problem. We don't want that to happen. So that's why I said it has to be a nutritionally balanced and complete food. If you just give your cat tofu and don't give any supplements, then you will run into problems. They can get heart disease, blindness, so you definitely don't want to do something like that. But what I'm saying is that it can be done. I mean, there have been cases of humans feeding their babies vegan and the vegan babies not thriving or surviving. But that wasn't because of the vegan diet. It was because it was poorly done. It wasn't meeting their nutritional needs. And they're abusive parents of every stripe, not just vegan. I mean, it's just unfortunate that the news media focuses on those few cases and then they don't focus on many thriving, amazingly healthy vegan children that are out there in droves because, it doesn't get the news media to focus on it. So, but yeah, it's definitely doable. With cats, like I said, it's not as easy, so I can't say that every cat is going to be vegan. It's not the case. Some cats will refuse to eat the food, for example, and then you can't just starve them. You have to feed them something. But if it's done gradually, increasing the proportion of the vegan food by bit and bit over the course of a couple weeks, they can adapt to it, provided they'll eat the food. You don't want them to be not eating for a prolonged period. With dogs, you can fast them for up to a day and it's still safe to do. But yeah, you don't want to just have them lose weight or anything like that. Yes?
Feel about animal products that are used in veterinary medicine, like flavorings and vaccines that are made with eggs.
Okay, so the question is regarding animal ingredients in veterinary products and medications and such. So yeah, it's something of concern in a sense. However, to my mind, it's not the top priority. I look at the big picture because we have a huge crisis globally going on right now, and animal suffering is huge. However, a little bit of flavoring in one medication is not going to make or break that outcome. So if that needs to be done in order for the cat or dog to take the medication, I am fine with that, because we do not live in a perfect world and sometimes compromises have to be made. It's just the way it goes. Yeah, I'm not into perfectionism. I think progress is much more important than perfectionism, because if we get stuck in perfectionism, we're not actually making progress.
I just read the book Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer, and he also mentioned that process rendering, and there were rumors about cheap cat food putting euthanized dogs and cats meat. Do you believe in that? I mean, is it true, or just he wrote about that, and I'm confused to believe it or not.
I did see a report once of euthanized dogs and cats being found in pet food. They actually were able to detect DNA and sodium pentobarbital, which is the euthanasia solution that's used to euthanize dogs and cats. However, I don't know how commonly that actually occurs, because that was just one report. So I would need to see further research to corroborate that's a frequent occurrence. To my knowledge, it's very infrequent that would happen. There is still the concern, of course, of byproducts like slaughterhouse rejects, diseased body parts, and lesions that are not fit for human consumption. Not that any of us would want to eat that, but the standards for pet food are much lower than for human grade meat. So we were looking at cancerous lesions and beaks and feathers, bone all ground together. Whatever constitutes their definition of fiber, it would be
and
considered.
That's what they call animal byproducts or meal byproducts, right?
Right, anything that says animal byproducts, meat meal, chicken meal, it's not ideal. You're welcome. All right, well, if there's no other question, I guess we'll transfer over to the next speaker then.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ray.